your movement and you'll become impossible to hit and start climbing. And you'll get closer to achieving the rank you deserve and have fought so hard for. Actually, I lied, because this video contains 6, not 5 tips to instantly fix your movement. And I'll even cover mistakes to avoid towards the end of the video. But I won't cover BS advice like, don't move forward, move sideways and you will become a harder target to hit. Yeah, I think we all understand that. My name is KG Pros and I have hit Immortal 3, rank 3000 on the EU servers.
Nice, Jet. Nice.
The foundation and key principle to understanding movement starts with understanding tip number 1, so I'm going to go over it briefly. 1. TTK or time to kill. There's something important to get right before we get into the second tip, and that is, why is movement so important? Isn't aim more important? The one with better aim just wins the fight, right? This is what you might think. What really matters in a fight is the TTK or time to kill. Who kills the other person the fastest? Because of this, you want to increase your enemy's TTK and decrease your TTK. This is where movement comes in. Good movement means increasing your enemy's time to kill while decreasing yours. Good movement is movement that makes you hard to hit but makes the enemy easy to hit. By the end of the video, I will be putting everything together and showing you how to use movement correctly step by step. Now on to the second tip, tempo strafing. This is one of, if not the most important aspect of movement if you ask me. This will allow you to both decrease your time to kill and increase the enemy's time to kill if done right. Tempo strafing is when you decide to stop and shoot between strafes. Most people just strafe left and right, shooting every time they stop while trying to strafe as fast as possible. So the best ways to practice tempo strafing, and the way to do it and the way I do it, is by either playing medium bots or by playing Eliminate 100. Start medium bots, you jump, you strafe, and then you flick while you're moving, and you don't flick to the middle constantly. Pros might be able to do this because they have world-class aim. Stopping and shooting faster than your aim is capable of handling is just catastrophic. You're stopping, which makes you an easy target, and your aim is not even on the enemy yet because you're moving too fast. This is just gambling and you're breaking the principle of time to kill. You're missing your shots because you're moving too fast, which increases your time to kill. You're stopping without killing your enemy, which decreases their likely time to kill. So let me show you how to do this instead. When strafing, you want to only stop when you're on target. This will oftentimes make your strafes a bit longer, which is good. Because of this, you will reach your maximum speed, making you travel further and becoming a harder target to hit. It's not about the person that can move and stop the fastest. There needs to be intention behind when you stop and shoot. Don't stop and shoot just because you feel pressured to do so. If you're going to miss, you will just break the TTK principle and lose anyways. As a result, everyone should have slightly different tempo strafing depending on their aim. Give yourself enough time to aim and only stop once you're on target, and be intentional with when you stop. The better you become, the earlier you will be able to stop and the faster you will become, which will decrease your time to kill. If you can master this alone, you will improve immensely. So don't rush your movement and don't rush your shots. Tempo strafing will get you far, but unless you have the right angle, movement, holding technique, it won't matter. And that's where tip number 3 comes in, something I call agile angle holding. When holding an angle, you need to have a plan B in case you miss the first bullet, and that's where movement comes in. Positioning yourself correctly to utilize movement is crucial to converting more fights. First off, you need to build a habit of always moving after you shoot, including when holding an angle. Most people just put all their effort into hitting that first bullet when they hold an angle, and if they miss, they stand still and commit to a spray. Oftentimes holding an angle is harder aim-wise than picking someone. When you pick someone, most of the times they will be standing still and you will be able to hit the shot. But when you're holding an angle, they are the ones moving, which requires more aim. And as a result, most players compensate by standing still to make the shot easier. This is what you're doing wrong. Do not do this. This will cost you many games and keep you stuck. Instead, you need to pick your angle with intention and make it a habit to strafe and be ready to move if you miss that crucial first bullet. So always, if you're holding an angle and you miss the first bullet or first burst, instantly start moving. So how do you pick a great angle to leverage movement properly? First off, unless you have a teammate ready to trade you when playing in a corner, you need to slightly move out of the corner so you can strafe left and right. If you're standing dead in the corner, you only have one direction to move, and that's really predictable for the enemy and becomes an easy kill for them. Another good practice is to commit to a fight if you are holding an angle that is spammable. Otherwise, you will just strafe behind the cover and get spammed anyways, so you might as well commit to the fight. You also want to avoid fighting in chokes as much as possible. Fighting in chokes is just asking to lose the gunfight. This mistake alone can keep you hard stuck. Why is fighting in chokes so horrible, you might ask? When fighting in a tight choke, you probably won't have much space to move, which is terrible for winning gunfights. Fighting in chokes oftentimes means you will not have an angle advantage, which is the fourth tip. If you don't fully understand angle advantage and how to use it to your advantage, you're leaving a lot of free fights on the table. Let me give you the secrets on how to properly understand and use angle advantage, and what role movement plays into it. And no, I won't just tell you to stand far away from the angles and you will have angle advantage, and this is how you win fights. Alright, tip number 4, angle advantage. Most of you probably already know what angle advantage is, so I'm just gonna explain it really briefly and then jump into the advanced parts of angle advantage. The further away from an angle you stand, the earlier you will see your enemy, and vice versa. The closer you stand to an angle, the later you will see your enemy, which ties into the first principle of TTK, time to kill. Standing far away from an angle will allow you to achieve a lower time to kill than standing close to an angle. Now to the fun stuff and the secrets. How can we use this concept to win more fights? Obviously, you want to avoid these kinds of fights as much as possible, since you're at a disadvantage, but sometimes we can't avoid fighting in chokes and in positions where the enemy has an angle advantage. So if you find yourself in a situation like this, you need to use your movement and cover to win the fight. In most cases, you're going to want to make a tight and quick peek and then going back to cover. This will give you very little time to aim, and it's going to be a hard shot to hit, but is most of the times the best option. If you don't hit the shot, it's fine. If you do, great. But what you can do is you untuck, you unpeek, and then you peek again, because most of the times the enemy will still be standing on the exact same position after you peek the first time, and that gives you an easily pre-aimable target that you can just kill with your second peek. And so the first peek actually is more about getting information of where they're standing, so that you can convert the kill on the second one. But by tight peeking and trying to hit the shot, you still give yourself a chance of killing them on the first peek. Another option is shoulder peeking and just finding out where the enemy stands and then wide swinging once you have conditioned them to holding the angle really tight. When fighting close to an angle, you also want to position yourself a bit from the cover so you can reach maximum speed once you do peek. So do not take tiny steps, because that won't reach your max speed and the tight's going to be even slower, putting you at an even bigger disadvantage. Slicing the cake when in a choke is oftentimes a really bad idea as well, since you have a much higher risk of exposing a part of yourself before you see your enemy. So jiggle or commit to a fast, tight peek, then hide and go for a second peek. Most of the times, peeking wide without doing anything first will result in you losing the fight, because the enemy will have way more time to react and line up the shot than you. By this time, you should have a strong foundation for good movement that will get you closer to your dream rank. But there's more. There's an instinct most people have that is holding them back from winning more fights. This instinct is something pros have discarded and developed a new instinct, a new habit. This is tip number 5 and something I call flick movement. We all know the importance of crosshair placement and avoiding flicking as much as possible in order to be more consistent. But let's be honest here, sometimes you don't have a choice. A target pops up out of nowhere and you have to flick and fight. But here's the problem. Most people have an instinct of reacting and instantly flicking to the target, hoping they'll get the kill. We feel pressured to flick and rush a shot because instinctively we know we're at a disadvantage, because the enemy has their crosshair on us while our crosshair is somewhere else completely. So why is this bad, you might ask? This overcompensation by flicking is bad because it keeps you standing still. Going back to the TTK principle, which in this case means giving your enemy an easy kill that then lowers their time to kill. So instead, our instinct needs to be to first strafe, then going back to the tempo strafing principle of lining up the shot before we stop and shoot, not rushing ourselves. This is way more consistent than cope flicking, unless it's a small flick you actually feel comfortable taking. Another really important reason as to why this technique is so strong is because of timing. The best time to move is right before the enemy shoots. No shit. But in scenarios like these, your enemies will have lined up their shot on you, ready to shoot, and if you're fast enough, you will almost always dodge their first bullet, giving you the advantage in the fight, since you've basically baited them by seemingly giving them an easy shot, and now they're standing still and you're moving, ready to collect that free kill. Movement and aim always go hand in hand, where moving after you take the first bullet or first burst when holding an angle is really strong because you're standing still, they think it's an easy shot, they line it up, but then you actually move and you're able to convert those fights way more. Movement and aim always go hand in hand, and that is why you need the correct movement shooting technique, which leads us to tip number 6. Most people know that bursting is good, but don't understand why. There are two main reasons why bursting is good. The first reason, and the most important one, is tagging. Tagging or hitting an enemy slows their movement speed, but do you know by how much? It's roughly 70% for half a second. So if you burst and miss the head but hit their shoulder, you'll have a much easier second shot. The second reason is options. The more bullets you shoot, the higher the chance of hitting your target, even if they move. If you spray, you have a high chance of hitting your target, but since you can't move, you don't have any options and give your enemy an easy target and allow them to get a low time to kill. By bursting, you can still track and hit a moving target while not committing to the fight and standing still for too long. Correct movement shooting technique will help you rank up way faster. If you follow these 6 principles, I can guarantee that you will win more fights and come closer to achieving that dream rank of yours. But there's one last thing I want to share with all of you that have stayed till the end, the ones of you that actually care about improving, and that is some common mistakes to avoid when using movement. Microstrafing. Most times microstrafing is just an illusion. To you it looks like you're moving, but to the enemy you're actually moving such a tiny amount that it doesn't matter and they're still able to kill you. And it's as if you were standing still all along, except for you, you're going to be inaccurate and can't shoot while you're taking these micro steps. Shift peeking. Unless you're tight on time, avoid shift peeking as much as possible. It's a slow peek and makes you an easy target to hit. Instead, you can divide it all up into smaller peaks that still allows you to be silent while not making you slow and an easy target to hit. Crouching. For almost all players except pros, crouching in most scenarios won't do you any good. Crouching deletes all of your options. You're forced to commit to the fight and makes you an easy target to hit. Counter-strafing. Counter-strafing is a concept that is popular in CS, and it's where you tap the opposite movement button in order to stop faster. In CS it's crucial to play the game, but in Valorant the movement speed is much slower and you stop faster, so there's no need to learn this mechanic. It's entirely up to preference. If you have learned it, continue doing it if it feels more natural, otherwise don't spend the time learning counter-strafing. Jump spotting poorly. In most cases jump spotting will be the safest way to gather information without dying, so when you want information, jump spot, which is done by just strafing back and forth in the air, but to do it closer to cover and don't be lazy. Now that you have all the good habits and principles and have eliminated all the common mistakes, I'm going to show you how to actually practice these things so that you can learn these techniques fast and jump into ranked and start winning right away. The best practice is always going to be the practice that is closest to in-game real scenarios, and so playing deathmatch is crucial to improving your movement, and I usually just do it with a Vandal, and I practice the most important skill of being able to move and aim at the same time. You don't want those things to be two separate actions. You always want to be able to aim and move and not stop and then aim. So practicing this in deathmatches is really good and it's going to help your movement a lot. Training the instinct of if someone peeks you, you don't want the instinct of flicking and then spraying. If someone peeks you, you want to be moving and flicking at the same time and then stopping when you're actually on target. So if someone peeks you, don't just try and flick and move at the same time. And if someone peeks, you're ready to just dodge their first bullet and then you're able to kill them afterwards. Understanding these tips and mistakes is crucial to improve, But if you don't practice any of it, you won't actually improve and get better. It's like teaching someone to ride a bike. Agile. I can give you all the knowledge, but unless you practice it yourself, you won't see any of the results. If you want to learn more and stop losing and rank up faster, I have a video that can help you win up to 50% more rounds if you properly learn how to defend.